So I mentioned a lot of module system commands, and let's go a little bit more into detail with that. You have already seen that you can find specific versions of software, and you've also seen me briefly load a module. We're going to do it again now. And also how to unload specific versions of software. If you're not at PDC, you can test module purge to remove the modules. Uh, it works, it's safe at other centers, but if you're at Bianca, then there will be an UPPMAX module you need to load afterwards. And then we saw how to list the loaded modules. And we'll now look more at getting information about a module and also a little bit about collections, more than we already did. So we already saw which modules are available. Let's work with them more. So let's find the software version as I showed you. And yeah, it's good to use the specific version you have worked with because there are situations where changes in the version could break your code or at least give a different result. In any case, it's bad for reproducibility. You should use the same version. And there are also situations where you might need a specific version if you are installing some type of software yourself. So it's important to load the specific version. One example where you can load it directly without that is if you have a hierarchical system and you have loaded a specific compiler version, because then afterwards it will, to a large degree, be set which versions you can load. So, for instance, if you have loaded GCC for that is the correct GCC for a specific Python, there will only be that one Python that you can load. And then afterwards, there will only be one SciPy module, which we'll look at later, and so on. So when you have picked a GCC version, for instance, or Cray compiler version, then you are sort of set into that path, and everything you load afterwards should be compatible with each other, because that is something that is important. You need to load modules that work with each other if they cannot be compiled with different compilers or different libraries. But this should ensure that it doesn't happen. So we looked at module spider and module avail. And now please go ahead and check at your center which versions of Python is available. So simply try module spider and module avail, see what you get. Try writing Python with uppercase or lowercase. Test it, see what shows up and how many versions are there. So just test that out now in a couple of minutes or something. And if you have already tried with Python, try something else, maybe GrowMax or something, because this is very important that you are able to find the specific versions that you need. And yeah, it also gives you an opportunity to test what happens if you are writing it differently. And for instance, at PDC, you get nothing if you spell Python with an uppercase first letter. You do, however, for MATLAB. So I will continue and try and go ahead. And now when you have seen how you can find the versions for Python at your center, try and also check how you load a specific Python module, so version. So say module spider Python / the version you're interested in, and then try and load it and see what module list says before and after loading that and any prerequisites. And MATLAB at the PDC, for instance, has a prerequisite. It has this PDC 2411, this compiler bundle thing here. So you need to load that first before you can load MATLAB. And if you check with ML before and after loading, then you will see that the modules that you have loaded will change. So now I'm, for instance, loading the PDC module and the MATLAB module, and it just, you can see here in this case, actually, aside from those two, it loaded one more. And this is a thing you will often see, that more modules get loaded than the ones you load yourself, because there's very often some extra prerequisites that actually gets pulled in. And that is what you will see, for instance, with Python at many of the centers. GROMACS, MATLAB, you can also test, or any other piece of software that you are interested in. You could test and see how it looks before and after loading it. And then, of course, now you can unload it, and you do module unload or ML unload. And let's unload this module here. And then we are back to only having PDC loaded here. And you can see here is a list of how it is at the various centers. These are mainly examples doing what we have already done. So in general, check, does it have prerequisites? If it does, pick a version, load it, then load the module itself. And you find them with module spider module. And then module spider, the name of the module / the version to see how you load it. And this is an example of the centers like HPC2N and LUNARC, which has hierarchical layout, and where you almost always have to load a compiler toolchain or something first. Another thing is, if you are loading several modules, you can load them one at a time, or you can load them at the same time on one line. If you know what you want to load, then loading them on one line is maybe faster and easier. Do mark that any prerequisites must always be loaded first. So in this case, this is a prerequisite, so it has to be listed first before the module you are loading. The advantage with loading them on separate lines is that after you have loading this compiler here, there will usually only be one relevant version to load of, for instance, Python or whatever other software it was. So it can make things easier to find. And it works much the same way here at NSC, except that they have the flat structure, as you can see here. And this is what I just told you. And here's an example for these centers here. Let's look at it at PDC. If you need TensorFlow, there is a thing at PDC. Sometimes you need something that's not a module. So you may need to mix modules and containers. So first you would load some modules simply to access the container program Singularity. And then when you have done that, you can access the containers themselves. At PDC, there is information here. This is not the case at the other centers. They mainly just have modules. It will probably be the case at the new Argenio, so that something will be as containers and something will be as modules, and that you sometimes have to mix. So I already told you that when you are unloading something, you would use a module unload. But you should be careful with module purge. If you're at PDC, don't do it. If you're at anywhere else, it's handy and easy to remove all things you have loaded when you are going to load a different software, for instance. So why would you want to unload a module? Maybe you want to try a different version, or maybe you had a different version of a dependent module, but it's not compatible with the prerequisite you have loaded, so you unload it and load the other one instead. In general, if you're using module unload, it does not unload the prerequisites. So that's not usually a problem if there's no prerequisites. If there are, then it can be annoying, but at those centers, you can use module purge. I have mentioned several times, don't use it at PDC. But what you can do there instead is, of course, you can always log out and log in again. Then these system modules get loaded. But another thing you can do is using the module collection. And I'm going to go and talk about that now, because this is the same that I have already shown you, just some examples doing what I did. Let's see. Yeah, maybe you want to try this out one more time before, but I'm just going to show you what happens when you say modules show. If you say modules show now when I have loaded the prerequisite, then you can do modules show on, for instance, MATLAB, which was what I had loaded before and which I can now load. What it tells you is what it's going to do with module show. It says, I'm going to set this path here for you when I load it. And what happens is it simply sets the path to the MATLAB binary. In many cases, it will also set paths to libraries and to packages. So let's try and do module help. Let's see what happens. With module help, it doesn't actually give you much information. It just tells you that you should go to MathWorks. Sometimes there will be more useful information. Let's try and see a Cray Python, what they say there. Here, there is more useful information because it also tells us that these packages here are included with Cray Python. So here there's actually quite a lot of useful information. Let's see what module show says. Yeah, I misspelled it. And module show in this situation does mostly the same as module help, except that it also tells you that it's loading this module here. And here you have some more paths that it tells you. I'm going to set the path to the binary. I'm going to set the path to the manuals and also to this library for Python. And then I'm setting the Python path. So for different modules, you will get some information with module help and module show. Module help will often tell you which extra packages are included. It will also sometimes be listed when you just do module spider. There is a module that's called build-env that is installed at some of the centers. If you have loaded the compilers and then say module show build-env, you will get a list of handy environment variable to use when you are compiling. If you, for instance, have loaded a so-called toolchain, which are compilers and libraries, then you can do a load of build-env, and then module show build-env will give you the environment variable that makes it easier to compile with laypack and things like this. So this is short for building environment. And that's handy if you're building your own software. So let's end with talking about the collections again. If you want to have your specific modules that you are using often easily available, maybe you have 8 modules you always load before you are running your software. Don't put it in Bash RC because maybe the versions will change, so you need to update them. And it can be easy to forget what you have put in Bash RC. Instead, do a module collection. You can load the module you want. Let's say I want to make a collection of these modules I have here. So I say module save, and I call them Birgitte's modules. And then I am saving this collection here. And now if I unload everything, even with purge, I can just restore it. See, now there's basically nothing loaded. So I now say ml restore these modules. And I probably didn't call it that. I had an S, like that. Then it's restoring the modules, and I do ML, and it loaded them again. Okay, I had already loaded something that I shouldn't have, and then unloaded path of it. But this will work usually, because then you restore the modules. Then after doing that, you can load some other module that you also want to add to your collection, and then you again say module, save, and the name of the collection, and then the collection gets updated. So now you have a bigger collection of modules. So and you can make changes to it. So that's very useful and a very easy way of always loading the same modules. And there's examples of that here. So in general, create the module collection, work with it, possibly unload something, load different one, and you can restore it. Or you can add modules to it and save it. And then when you have logged out and logged in again, you just restore it. Very nice. And this is something I suggest we just let's take 5 minutes and try and create a module collection. And then afterwards, I will end this section and we will continue to the next one. Now we will have a break and then we will continue. So try and create a module collection, load some stuff, create the collection, try and log out and log in again, for instance, and then restore the collection. So 5 minutes, and after that we will have 15 minutes of break. So the break starts 10:03 and runs to 10:18. So you get the full break.